career for 30, 40 years, I guess it was, and great opportunity. And I none of that would have happened if it hadn't been for my mother.
Were you a good student, an average student?
Well, in high school I was, I'd say an average student. Grade school I was an excellent student. But then we were talking, I just had a family reunion here, or a family reunion, high school reunion this weekend, 50th reunion for Harlan High School, class of 1955, and we got to talking about this. And I ran around with a group of some of my friends as I got older. I got into sports. I was very active in basketball, football, and anything sports. I was golf. I loved to play golf. And some of these people, it was a sort of a badge of honor if you didn't get if you didn't get good grades. I mean, you didn't want to be thought of as a.
You didn't want to. You wanted to fit in.
Yeah, I wanted to fit in. I wanted one of the gang, and so you didn't want to study, and it's not the right way to go, but. And so
not abnormal though.
No, I know it's, and as we talked about it, we found lots of people there that did the same thing. But it lots depends upon what kind of people your friends and how they look at things. But eventually, as I got to college, then I got more serious about my studies and went on to graduate school. And I got more serious yet. But it was easy to slough off.
Can you tell me about the fire that you had in your house?
Yes, I was 4 years old, 1941, I think February. My mother was doing Monday, I think it was Monday morning laundry down in the basement, but she had been out hanging up clothes, came running back inside and said she'd seen, she didn't tell me, but I was there at home, but saw smoke coming off the shingles on the house there in Harlan, and ran upstairs. We lived upstairs, and my Uncle Elmer and his family lived downstairs at the time. My mother, the first thing she did, she went up to the kitchen upstairs. She opened the door to the attic, which was off the kitchen, and fire came out at her at that time. It already was engulfed in flames up in the attic. She said the first thing she grabbed was a teacup. She didn't grab a diamond ring or anything like that. And anyway, she went running and I guess called the fire department. They fortunately saved the house. It burnt the top third of the house off. I stood outside looking up as the firemen were fighting the fire, and my biggest concern was I had a farm set up in a closet up in my bedroom, I guess, that I was worried it was going up in smoke, and it did. But fortunately, it didn't burn to the ground, but we lived in our garage for about 2 months while the house was being rebuilt.
When was the fire then, in the spring?
Yes, it was in February, I think. It was cold.
Early, yeah.
Right. And we did live with, I think, Uncle Hank Mortensen and Eva for a while. They lived in Harlan. Well, until then we got the garage, so we could sleep in the garage. We could use the bathrooms in the house. Yeah, they were okay. So my Uncle Elmer and his family, they built a chicken house that later was turned into a chicken house. They just lived in that a while until.
So they moved out of the main floor as well.
Yeah, you had to. Yeah, right. It was all water and smoke damage.
Yeah, Henry and Eva lived up by the old high school.
Yes, they did. Yes. So. Yep. They were good. My mom and dad were, and Hank and Eva were. Did a lot of things together.
Yeah, Henry and Eva were real close. My dad was real close with Henry and Eva.
Yes.
So I don't know what, but they must have just, like you say, real good family
They
ties.
really did. Yeah, right. Yeah. Even my mom, they seemed to hit it off very well.
Good people.
Yeah, they were good people. And Hank died way too young.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. He did.
You talked about going to college, undergrad school. Where did you go?
Morningside in Sioux City, and that's when I had a chance to get, learn and get to know my uncle, the Hopes better, Jimmy Hope, and Aunt Gerda, who lived in Sioux City.
Yeah. And, what do you remember about that? Tell us just whatever you can remember about that.
Well, I remember going up there long before I went to college in Sioux City. From time to time, we'd go up to Sioux City and visit. And my first memory of Sioux City was sitting out in the car on a Sunday afternoon waiting for my folks to come out so we could drive back to Harlan, which is about 100 miles, but listening to, I think, The Shadow on the radio in my dad's car. that was pretty exciting. But,
what kind of car was that? Do you remember?
No, I don't. It was probably a 41 Chevrolet, I think it was. But later on, I received a football scholarship at Morningside. It was a Division II school at that time, which I decided to accept, and went up there in the fall of 1955 after high school graduation. And one of the things that was nice about it was going to a town whose was probably bigger, about 100,000 people, but had an aunt and an uncle there, and my uncle Jim, he was quite a character. He was a lot of fun. My mother and father loved Jimmy Hope and also Gerda, but they didn't see each other. But Jim worked at Toller Drugstore. He was right behind in a cigar stand. Right as you come inside, everybody in Sioux City knew Jimmy. And I heard some things today from Steve and Ron that maybe that Jim was doing more than selling just cigars. And I didn't know that. And then Gerda worked in the dress area of Yonkers, and it was a couple other stores. But she always looked great. She wore nice clothes. She was very attractive, and I was always very proud of Gerda. And going over there, every now and then, not that often, but stop in and walk through the department into Yonkers, and she'd always come over and we'd chat a bit. And so it was a good time to get to know family better. And,
you bet. Yeah. So what did Ronnie say Jim might have been doing? And just
I think we say, well, he's talking something about being a bookie of some sort. I don't know, so he must have been doing into some gambling operations. And of course, up in Sioux City, that was pretty wide open up there. I mean, besides, I don't know what kind of gambling he might have been doing, but right across the river into South Dakota was they had horse racing, and they also had dog races.
Sodrack,
yes, and horse racing, and I remember remember going over as a freshman in college, and going over and placing a $2 bet on a quinella for 2 dogs, and the 2 dogs had to come in first and second, and lo and behold, the first bet I ever make, put down $2 and get back $64, and I thought I really knew what I was doing. Actually, I think it wasn't my freshman year. I think I did wait until like sophomore year.
Sophomore year.
Yeah, I've matured a little bit, not much, but and so I thought I probably knew what I was doing. But anyway, there was gambling up in that area was even back in the 50s was pretty accepted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
it is now. It's totally accepted, I guess.
Some of Gerda's brothers probably were doing the same thing as Jim, so it's not anything negative.
Is that right? Okay. Well, I
think I think there was more than Jim doing something.
Okay. Well,
maybe not in Sioux City, but in Iowa.
In Iowa. Okay. Well, there were probably a lot of people doing it. I didn't know about it. I was innocent. That's what I was.
So, do you remember anything? Would you like to say anything about Jack? Did Jack do anything that's memorable, or?
Oh, he did a lot. I mean, Jack and I, although we fought, we weren't the best of friends until after he left home and went to the University of Iowa in 1950, and then it wasn't until I went to college myself, then we became good friends. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, he went into hospital administration at the University of Iowa. I graduated from Morningside. After graduation, I decided to go into healthcare administration. And Jack, meanwhile, had graduated from Iowa. He went into the Air Force as an officer, and then went back to graduate school at the University of Iowa in healthcare administration. Well, at that time, I had gotten my undergraduate degree, and he was then in graduate school at Iowa, and he convinced me that I should look into the program, which I did. Mm-hmm. And I went and applied to the University of Iowa, and I followed his footsteps. Not only did I do that, with the fact going to healthcare administration, but I also, after following my residency in Portland, Oregon in healthcare administration, I spent a couple years out there. I decided myself to go into the Air Force. I spent 3 years as an officer in the Air Force, first lieutenant, stationed at Laredo Air Force Base, Texas, and that's, you know, so we went through the same career path, and in some ways we both went into the Air Force, both the lieutenants. He married someone from Morris Plains, New Jersey, and I ended up marrying someone, actually my brother's wife's sister's daughter in a second marriage, and so not only did we follow the same careers, we ended up marrying into the same family. And I'm looking over at my wife now, Patricia, and it was so I had nothing but respect and admiration for my brother. He was a much better student. He was a graduated with honors from high school. He was honors graduate in college at ROTC. He was given an appointment to West Point that he turned down because he already had 1 year in Iowa, and it's just you know, he was a hospital administrator in Pekin, Illinois for 20 years, and then went off in some other things, but you know, so I just had so much respect for him, and we were so close in years following him. My parents died relatively early, and so it was just the two of us, and then he died, Jack died in 1995, age 63, way too young, heart attack, in Charleston, South Carolina. So I'm the last of a little family that grew up in Harlan, south of the golf course.
You still got your dad's tractor?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it actually now is in my son's Greg's possession. He lives down by Champaign, Illinois, Sydney, Illinois. He is an engineer with an engineering firm, and he's got an acreage, and he's got a couple kids.
And the tractors still work?
Oh yeah, they love it. I had it restored. I found it out in western Iowa after many years. I drug it back across Iowa. I had it restored over in where I lived at the time in eastern Iowa, and it was my pride and joy. I kept it in my garage when I lived in East Moline, and you know, once in a while I drove around the block, and people come over and look at it.
Yeah.
It was a 36 F20 Farmall International Harvester tractor. It's a beauty.
Yep.
It still is. It still runs, and it's going to be in my family for a while longer yet, anyway.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything else you can think of that everybody might be interested in? Story or?
I don't know. I just feel so fortunate to grow up in the family I did. Both my mother and my father, they were just incredible people. Without their guidance and the type of people they were, they taught me so much. Taught me like compassion and respect and for other people. And I went into healthcare administration, and I had a fair amount of success, and I really enjoyed my career. I retired in 2001, but after running the same hospital and being the chief executive officer for 32 years, it was an incredible experience, and I really traced it back. The foundation that I felt my parents, but with their families, where their roots, going back to Grandma Christian and Morris Christensen. I mean, Morris was a real fine individial, and although he wasn't my grandfather by bloodline, he was the only grandfather I ever knew on that side of Laura, and they always got along well, and but it was just that family bond and the foundation that my mother had, and that Mortensen, Rutson, and Christensen, and beyond, and so it was, and I encouraged me to go to school, having the right values, having a lot of support, and so it's been a wonderful I've been very fortunate.
Yep.
I'm so privileged, and couldn't have asked. I can't ask for anything more. If I die tomorrow, I've lived a full life.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay.